Hey, and we're live. So it is Sunday, and which means it's a new week. But if you've been paying attention at all to this past week, you'll know that SnyderVerse leaks and rumors have been dropping like flies. And I did several videos on the SnyderVerse this past week. I did one on the release of the Batfleck rumors. For his movie, what that was going to be, the return of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and then Snyder's secret plans for a Flash trilogy. And that's not all. I mean, that's just like sort of the tip of the iceberg. What the Batfleck movie was going to be, which sounded awesome, 80 years of mythos. Wonder Woman 3, we'll see what's going to happen. Bear with me for a moment. The Flash trilogy, revealing that the entire big bad is not Darkseid, but it's actually the Reverse Flash, who's been moving through the entire DCEU, through the entire Snyderverse, wreaking havoc. The Justice League 2 leaks, where Snyder says that he was going to have the female Furies invade Themyscira, all the way to the Legion of Doom, preparing the way for Darkseid, that the Riddler was going to solve the anti-life equation. I mean, there's just Snyderverse drops everywhere. And that brought me to this tweet, which I found late last night from Brad Curran. And it says, when you have a situation where actors keep being retained, details of unmade movies are revealed, calls for the story to be finished keep persisting, and even the big guy himself re-enters DC chatter all in the last week. I'm saying it's unkillable. And that brings me to the Screen Rant article that Brad actually wrote that I'm going to get to here now, saying that DC truly cannot cut ties with the Snyderverse. I've been saying all along, and I don't know exactly how, I can't sit here and say that, I've got some inside scoop or that, people are talking to me on the inside. If you know something, feel free to contact me on Twitter at American Werewolf, or leave a comment here in the video with contact information. I'd love to, have an anonymous source or something like that. But it's just my vibe that within 5 years, Snyder is going to be back working on the Snyderverse, finishing everything. And this says Zack Snyder and Gal Gadot are both connected to recent DC news, highlighting how significant Snyder's DCEU films are to DC's on-film legacy. Now, it could be that we have an indefinite strike and James Gunn never gets off a movie. That's my hope, because I just have zero interest in a James Gunn DC. Or it could be that he drops a couple of movies and they flop. I'm positive at $50 billion in the hole, although it is my understanding that as of late, Warner Brothers has offset some of that debt, that they definitely have a plan B in the back of their heads. So this is from Brad Curran, published yesterday. Zack Snyder and Gal Gadot's recent involvement in DC movie news shows the lasting impact of the Snyderverse on DC's past and future, despite not being creatively involved. Zack Snyder's tweet about Blue Beetle, saying that he was looking forward to taking his son to see Blue Beetle, generated significant buzz, highlighting his influence and connection to DC. Gal Gadot's development of Wonder Woman 3 further cements the Snyderverse influence and ties to DC Studios, keeping it a prominent topic in the industry. This is a fantastic series of casting choices. Affleck, Gadot, Ray Fisher, all right, Ezra Miller, take it or leave it, whatever. Jason Momoa, and of course, the central figure, Henry Cavill as Superman. Let's keep going. Zack Snyder and Gal Gadot are both at the center of recent DC movie news, highlighting how inseparable the Snyderverse is from DC's past and future on film legacy. Zack Snyder's tenure as a director of DC Comics-based movies began with 2009's Watchmen, and later we go further with this 2013 film Man of Steel, which would launch the DCEU. For people who tell you that these movies were not profitable, those people are full of shit. They're very profitable, especially when you combine them with physical media sales. So you put the on-screen profits together with the physical media sales, you're generating a lot of money. I think the stupid thing that Warner Brothers did was they wanted the Avengers. So, yeah, just dumb. Gal Gadot would also become a core cast member of Snyder's DCEU. Get out of here, you dumb cat. Sorry, that's my cat. With her portrayal of Wonder Woman, beginning in 2016's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and continuing in both solo and ensemble films. Dawn of Justice, Ultimate Edition, BVS, one of the greatest comic book movies of all time, right up there with the rest of what Snyder has directed. After the formation of DC Studios, a new DC cinematic universe dubbed the DCU is set to commence, beginning with James Gunn's Superman Legacy. That sucks. Following the tumultuous behind-the-scenes history of Snyder's DC stewardship with DC's former leadership, his intended 5-part story remains unfinished. And this is what I'm talking about. I don't know if that means he's going to completely come back and, take over some long tenure. That would be fantastic. Because I remember Gary from Nerdrotic, around the time that the Snyder Cut dropped, said that he felt the direction that DC was going in. We would all wish for the return of the Snyder Cut. We were going to wish that Snyder was back. I never wanted Snyder to leave in the first place. I think that people that struggle with, rigid interpretations, narrow and shallow interpretations, and basically boring interpretations, just complained about bullshit and were people picking gnat shit out of pepper and what were actually quite fantastic films, and some of the few comic book movies that still hold up today. His intended 5-part story remains unfinished, though ongoing calls of a hashtag restore the SnyderVerse continue. However, despite the apparent end of DC SnyderVerse, recent surprising events involving both Snyder and himself and Gal Gadot have shown the close association both maintained with DC and illustrate that Snyder's DCEU has all but impossible for DC to truly move on from. And so we go to the Blue Beetle. Though Zack Snyder is not presently involved with DC, now presently, that's a big word, presently involved with DC on film. And comic book Screen Rant is usually kind of a go along, kind of a thing. They're going with the trends. So if James Gunn's in charge, they would typically not be causing too many waves. The fact that they've put this out in the first place means something. This isn't just, something to fill up space with. I think this signifies something, that there's a shift in attitudes about Snyder's work, and the recognition that the fan base isn't going anywhere. The fan base isn't going anywhere, and it's a large, large fan base that, if courted correctly, and if simply, as we always say, if you give the fans what they want, guess what? They're going to open their wallets and they're going to spend money. All week, people have also been talking about the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. People want to see that. Give them what they want. Let us give you our money. But we won't give you our money if you try to tell us what you think we want, instead of, just actually listening to what we want and then just giving it to us that way. Let us tell you. Look at the consumer demand. Okay. Though Zack Snyder, let's start over again, is not presently involved with DC on film in a creative capacity, he nonetheless would provide one of the biggest marketing jolts for the upcoming Blue Beetle by tweeting that he is, quote, looking forward to taking my kids to see Blue Beetle, along with hashtag representation matters. At writing, Snyder's Blue Beetle tweet has been retweeted over 15,000 times with over 105,000 likes and 16 million views. While Snyder's ability to drum up excitement through social media posts is well known, the reaction to Snyder's Blue Beetle tweet is all the more remarkable due to Snyder himself having no involvement in the making of the film. So clearly, whether you love him or you hate him, the guy makes things happen. And I think really when you listen to a lot of shit that people were saying about his films, it is a lot of bullshit, especially when you look at where Marvel is right now. If he had been allowed to continue to cook, DC would be on top right now, because Marvel clearly, as of 2019, just completely went over a cliff. And I'm not seeing that. I mean, with the overspending and these huge budgets for like 6-episode series, $200 million, $250 million for 6 episodes, ridiculous amounts of money that are just bleeding Disney dry. They could have been making tons of money instead of this direction that they're going in, trying to start over with something that a very small minority of people are enthusiastic about. Yeah. Okay. Despite, and there's the trailer for Blue Beetle. I haven't decided if I'm going to see it. It looks like a kid's movie, and that maybe the Cobra Kai fan base will shift over and support it. At this point, if they're making a decent movie, I hope it makes a lot of money. I don't know that I have any particular interest in it, but, we'll see what happens. Despite Blue Beetle being rather nebulously classified by James Gunn as the DCU's, quote, first character, end quote, with Superman Legacy being its first movie, Snyder's tweet would not only give Blue Beetle a significant injection of online buzz, because, that's all James Gunn said. That's all he said when he first announced his 8-year plan or 10-year plan for what his DCU is going to be. And there's been no push that I've seen from James Gunn trying to drum up any enthusiasm for this movie, especially in the face of online projections that say it's not going to do well. Where's the counter arguments? Where's Warner Brothers coming out saying, hey, well, the writer's strike is preventing some things, but damn, you should be able to do something. You should be able to tweet something. And I'm just not seeing anything from Gunn about it. Snyder's tweet would not only give Blue Beetle a significant injection of online buzz, but also one of the most talked about elements of Blue Beetle's marketing campaign. The guy's not even connected, and he's injecting some life into this film. The ultimate effect of that has been that, however much their present relationship might be in the marketing sense, Zack Snyder and DC on film are once more part of the same conversation again. This isn't going to change. The fan base isn't going away. They just want the one thing. It's very simple. They've been saying it again and again and again. This year, last year, the year before that. All you have to do is listen. Now, with the writer's strike going as long as it has, who knows? It looks like it could be going on indefinitely, but we'll see. With the same arguably being true of Suicide Director. I was just saying this, David Ayer, who quote tweeted Snyder's Blue Beetle tweet. Now we get to Gal Gadot. Prospective Wonder Woman 3 is another SnyderVerse anchor. This cast, people want this cast. And what we've seen consistently is that when these actors in their portrayal of these characters are directed by someone other than Zack, with the exception of, James Wan, I think he did a pretty good job with Aquaman. Patty Jenkins in the first Wonder Woman movie, I think, did a good job because it was a good script. But Zack Snyder gets the best work out of all these performers. It's just common sense. I don't know if it's stubbornness. I don't know if it's almost like a biblical sense of pride where people don't want to admit, oh, geez, we fucked up. Okay, let's just get back and give people what they want. We seem to be taking the long way around here, but that's just how things are sometimes. In another curveball of DC's cinematic future under DC Studios, news has also broken that Gal Gadot is developing a Wonder Woman 3 with DC Studios. I don't know how that's going to work. And obviously, and I don't know that I want to see her being directed by James Gunn. Oh, God. I really don't know that I want to see this because, we saw that in The Flash, where she turns into kind of a comic character. She's in it for 5 minutes and, crack a couple of jokes. And I refuse to watch The Peacemaker. I have no interest in seeing that. But again, BVS, Justice League, Snyder Cut Justice League. That's what I mean. We're seeing the absolute best of Wonder Woman. That introductory scene in the Snyder Cut with the bank robbery is just off the hook. This is what the people want. And so obviously surprising turn of events given Gunn's announced DCU slate. I don't know if he's trying to placate Snyder fans. It's not going to work. Exactly what Gal Gadot's continued attachment to Wonder Woman will end up looking like is unclear. Whether it will be a continuation of Gadot's iteration of the character under DC Studios' designated Elseworlds label or something else. I'll tell you what I'd like to see. I'd like to see what I just talked about in the intro to the video, where Darkseid's female Furies descend on Themyscira. That's what I'd like to see. That'd be a great use of Wonder Woman and the Amazons. Yeah, that sounds fine to me. I'd like to see more of the nightmare scenario. It's just so obvious. It's almost kind of frustrating to have to keep reiterating these things, but who knows, yeah. All right. By the same, the Elseworlds label or something else, by the same token, Gadot's apparent ongoing portrayal of Wonder Woman will also inevitably tether DC Studios' plans to the SnyderVerse. Gadot's portrayal of Diana has long been extremely popular. Of course it is. She's not what you would consider like a great thespian, but she's perfect for this role in this muted, sort of stoic warrior. And she's got a great range for this. With Gadot's Wonder Woman also being one of the founding heroes of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Gadot's continued association with Wonder Woman also, by extension, continues to associate DC's future cinematic plans with those established by Snyder. The only thing that's in the way is everything else. One way or another, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman continuing has the same effect of Snyder's supportive tweet of Blue Beetle, keeping both very much a part of the talk of all current DC cinematic news and developments. Zack Snyder is a famously polarizing filmmaker, and we were just talking about this with the director. Hopefully there's going to be an upcoming director's cut of Sucker Punch, which I can't wait for. And few areas of his filmography are greater testimony to this than his DCEU film's Man of Steel. I don't give a shit if people want an optimistic Superman. You had 4 Christopher Reeve Supermans, okay? I tell you what, open your mind up. Don't be boring. Don't be narrow-minded, dirty. I'm perfectly. I work a channel that covers a lot of horror. So if you're going to dirty these characters up, like, you're not going to get me crying for this light and bright shit. Dirty these characters up. Let's get down in the mud and let's get to fighting. Batman v Superman and Zack Snyder's Justice League. The divisive response to Batman v Superman especially highlights that, with Warner Brothers infamously retooling Justice League after Snyder's departure due to a family tragedy, reshooting much of the film under Joss Whedon's direction, with Justice League drastically changing over this time. The subsequent release of the Snyder Cut of Justice League is a divisive matter all on its own, which was a fantastic 4-hour movie. But what cannot be denied, pardon me, is the impact all 3 movies have had. Indeed, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League have all maintained a foothold in the cultural zeitgeist, with the 3 continuing to be dissected, discussed, and debated long after being released. The Snyder Cut itself would also lead to noticeable reappraisals of many detractors of its 2 predecessors and a re-energized interest in the unmade Justice League movies. Of Snyder's planned story and related spin-offs like Ben Affleck's solo Batman movie, even drawing a 1.5 million #RestoreTheSnyderVerse tweets in a day after the Snyder Cut's debut. Snyder and Godot's recent DC-related stories are prime examples of just how hard it has been for WB and DC to leave the SnyderVerse in their rear view. It's only difficult if you continue to try to do it. Stop doing that and give the fans what they want. And guess what? You're going to make money. You're going to make money. Moreover, Snyder and Godot's most recent DC stories could very well lead to #Restore the Snyderverse calls intensifying. You think? Snyder himself is seemingly not writing the idea off. I was there at the Full Circle. Well, I was watching the stream of the Full Circle weekend. He's very open to it. Ben Affleck seems very open to it. Ray Fisher, they were all there on the last night for the Justice League. Very open to it. Responded to a question about Robin's death at the hands of the Joker, asked at Full Circle. Snyder stopped short of giving over a detail, stating it would be a, quote, spoiler for maybe a thing that will never need to be spoiled, but we should wait to see. Don't you think? A little bit. I think that WB has a backup plan. They're not seeing overwhelming enthusiasm for James Gunn as the head of DC. James Gunn makes a particular type of film. We saw that with The Suicide Squad, which I did not really enjoy all that much. I saw it once. It was okay. I never need to see it again. So I enjoyed his first Guardians of the Galaxy film. I didn't like the second one very much. It's okay. I actually own it. It was part of an MCU box set I have. I haven't seen the third one because I'm just burnt out on Marvel. I'm trying to think, what else has James Gunn done? I enjoyed his script for Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. But yeah, I mean, I have no enthusiasm for a Snyder DC. Of course, Snyder also presently has his hands filled with his Rebel Moon franchise at Netflix, and I'm very much looking forward to that dropping. That's going to be a Merry Christmas for me. Not to mention the fact that he's going to be releasing director's cut in physical media, R-rated, hardcore Star Wars Kurosawa style Star Wars story that just isn't Star Wars. So fuck yeah, bring it. And with his Justice League cast partaking in their own projects and Gunn's DCU plans getting underway, a full-blown restoration of the Snyderverse seems unlikely in the immediate future. I think it's coming, though. Nonetheless, what Snyder and Godot's most recent DC-related activities do ensure is that on top of the Snyder Cut itself remaining inescapable for WB, the roadmap of Snyder's unfinished Justice League story is continuing to be fresh in the cultural zeitgeist and very much at the center of everything related to DC cinematically. I know you're in a tough spot, WB. You just hired this man, but do you know what drove people to see Black Adam? And I know it wasn't a huge blockbuster. It was the news that Henry Cavill was coming back. That's what people want. It's people want to see that Man of Steel 2 with Brainiac. That's what people want to see. Virtually everything about the story behind Zack Snyder's DCEU franchise is unique, from the release of the Snyder Cut to the longevity of Man of Steel, 10 years now, BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, despite the troubles each would have to overcome. As questions continued to swirl around Gunn's DCU slate, Godot's continued portrayal of Wonder Woman, and whether Snyder will eventually be able to complete his 5-movie Justice League story, Snyder and Godot's attachment to present tense DC movie news is evidence of a larger point. One way or another, the Snyderverse continues to be a central pillar to DC on film. And that's what I said. DC Studios canon is the Snyderverse. And the Snyderverse, I got news for you, is unkillable. The fans are going to continue to want this. The fans are going to be happy enough, if you give it to them, to spend their money. I think the normies will be pleased to see these things come back, things that are recognizable. Not like nobody knows what Creature Commandos. Like, My buddy across the street with 2 kids in 9th and 10th grade, they have no idea what creature commandos are. You know, I mean, you have to give people things that they can recognize within certain parameters. It's fun to introduce people to new things, but yeah, not going well so far with James Gunn, and the fact that these things keep popping back up. I'm telling you now, DC Studios canon is the SnyderVerse. And once again, the SnyderVerse is unkillable. That's my video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like this video. Leave a comment. One-word comment is fine. It helps with my traffic. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be covering Snyder news, not necessarily DC news or Marvel news, because I'm not all that interested. I do want to see what's happening when the new Daredevil drops. But past that, I don't have much interest. Let me know what you think. Subscribe to the channel. Lots coming up this week. And we will see you all in the next video. All right, take care now.